What happens when you begin curating your circle with intention? First, you'll feel resistance, both from others and from within yourself. Old patterns will pull, guilt will surface. The fear of missing out or being forgotten will tempt you back toward choices that no longer serve you. Then comes clarity. As you create space between yourself and draining relationships, your energy returns, your focus sharpens, you begin to hear your own voice more. The silent cost of the wrong circle. A Stoic view on friendship. The most dangerous thing about your social circle is how normal it feels. Your friends are draining your life, not with malice, but with distraction. Think about that for a moment. The people you've surrounded yourself with, the ones who occupy your evenings and fill your phone notifications, they might be the silent reason you feel scattered, behind, or perpetually exhausted. And it's happening so quietly, you've mistaken it for normal life. Have you ever left a social gathering more drained than when you arrived? Not just tired, but somehow diminished. As if something essential was taken rather than added. That feeling isn't random, it's data. And if you pay attention to it, truly pay attention, it might reveal the most uncomfortable truth you'll face this year. The very people you call friends could be the invisible anchors keeping you from becoming who you're meant to be. Not because they wish you harm, but because their presence in your life has gone unexamined for too long. The friendship illusion. We live in a culture that celebrates connection but rarely examines its quality. From childhood, we're taught that having friends is vital, a marker of success even. The more, the better. Popular culture reinforces this. Be likable, be available, maintain your network. But in this rush toward connection, we've lost something crucial: discernment. What no one teaches us is how to vet these relationships. We confuse access with alignment, familiarity with trust, shared history with shared purpose, and in that confusion lies a dangerous assumption that all friendship is inherently valuable. It isn't. Some connections nourish us, others slowly deplete us. The tragedy is that many of us can't tell the difference until we've already paid the price. Consider this: your mind is the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Their values shape yours. Their ambitions, or lack thereof, influence what you believe is possible. Their energy becomes your energy. Now look at your circle with clear eyes. What are you becoming by association? Think about the conversations that fill your days. Are they expanding your vision or narrowing it? Do they challenge your thinking or merely confirm what you already believe? Do they elevate your energy or deplete it? Most of us have never been taught to ask these questions. We accept relationships as they come, through circumstance, convenience, or shared history. We maintain them out of habit rather than intention. And we wonder why our lives feel somehow off course, our potential perpetually just beyond reach. But what if the answer isn't working harder or setting better goals? What if it's simply being more selective about who surrounds you while you pursue those goals? The hidden taxation of shallow company. There are friends who waste your time. Then there are those who waste something far more precious: your potential. The first type is obvious. They demand attention without offering growth. They consume hours without contributing meaning. They mistake presence for connection. But the second types these are the true liabilities in your life. Because while the time wasters take your hours, these relationships take your focus, your clarity, and ultimately your future. They operate through subtle mechanisms. They guilt you for setting boundaries. You've changed. You're too busy for us now. Remember when you used to be fun? These phrases aren't harmless observations. They're attempts to keep you small, to make your growth feel like betrayal. They normalize mediocrity. They celebrate comfortable routines over uncomfortable growth. They toast to weekends, but never to achievements. When you speak of ambitions, they respond with caution. When you share dreams, they offer practical advice that sounds suspiciously like surrender. They redirect your energy toward performance rather than purpose. With them, conversations stay safely at the surface. Deeper questions remain unasked. Authenticity is traded for acceptance. And perhaps most dangerously, they create an illusion of progress. The endless cycle of gatherings, conversations, and shared complaints creates a simulation of movement while keeping you firmly in place. Yet despite all this, they feel safe because they're familiar, because they've always been there, because changing your circle feels like changing your identity, and that's territory few are brave enough to explore. But here's what the Stoics understood centuries ago. Comfort is not the same as strength. Familiarity is not the same as alignment. And safety, pursued at the expense of growth, eventually becomes its own kind of cage. Consider the subtle ways these relationships maintain their hold on you. They don't demand your compromise. They assume it. They don't question your choices. They shape them before they're even made. They create an environment where certain thoughts go unexpressed, certain ambitions unexplored, certain parts of yourself carefully hidden away, all to maintain the comfortable equilibrium of a connection that may have outlived its purpose. I'm not suggesting these people are villains in your story. Most are merely supporting characters who've been miscast as leads. They entered your life for valid reasons, shared circumstances, mutual needs, genuine connection at a particular moment in time. The issue isn't their presence in your past, but their prominence in your present. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Relationships that once served you can silently transition into relationships that limit you, and the cost of this transition, left unexamined, compounds daily. The Stoic lens. A friendship as a filter, not a crowd. The ancient Stoics approached friendship differently than we do. They didn't crave attention or accumulate connections. Instead, they prized integrity in relationships above all else. Seneca wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." Simple words with profound implications. For the Stoics, friendship wasn't about validation or entertainment. It was about mutual elevation. To them, a true friend was someone who helped you become wiser, not just happier in the moment, supported your values, not just your emotions or impulses, respected your time as an extension of your life force, something sacred rather than something to be casually consumed, challenged your shortcomings rather than indulging them. The Stoic perspective offers a transformative question. If a friend doesn't help you stay on your path, are they not, by definition, pulling you off it, even if they mean well? This isn't about surrounding yourself with yes people or creating an echo chamber of agreement. Quite the opposite. The right people will disagree with you in ways that expand your thinking rather than contract it. They'll challenge you from a place of care rather than competition. But there's a profound difference between productive friction that sharpens you and draining friction that just wears you down. One leaves you better. The other leaves you depleted. Marcus Aurelius put it simply, the best way to avenge yourself is to not be like that. The Stoics understood that the company we keep shapes who we become, and becoming someone worth becoming was their highest aim. So they were selective, not out of arrogance, but out of respect for their own path. They understood that life is too brief and too meaningful to spend in circles that diminish rather than develop us. Epictetus, another Stoic philosopher, was even more direct. The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. He recognized that certain connections naturally elevate us, while others subtly diminish us. And in that recognition lies a powerful choice, to be deliberate about who earns proximity to our lives. This doesn't mean maintaining only relationships that feel easy. The Stoics valued challenging connections, friends who would point out their errors, question their assumptions, and hold them accountable to their own principles. What they avoided were relationships that distracted from their core values or diluted their focus. Imagine applying this filter to your own circle. It's not about having more impressive friends or surrounding yourself with success. It's about alignment. Do the people closest to you understand what matters most to you? Do they respect your pursuit of it, even if they don't share it? Do they contribute to your clarity rather than your confusion? If not, the Stoics would argue, they're not truly friends, at least not in the deepest sense of the word. They may be pleasant companions, useful contacts, or comforting presences. But friendship, in its highest form, involves mutual growth toward excellence. Anything less is merely social convenience disguised as connection. The natural evolution, outgrowing what kept you small. There comes a moment in many lives when familiar relationships start to feel uncomfortable. Conversations that once flowed now feel forced. Shared activities that once energized now drain. The easy laughter has an edge to it. This discomfort isn't random. It's evolution at work. You didn't outgrow them. You outgrew the version of yourself that needed them. This isn't about superiority or abandonment. It's about alignment. As you clarify your values and sharpen your purpose, certain relationships naturally fall out of sync. The misalignment creates friction. And that friction, left unaddressed, creates a quiet suffering that many mistake for normal adult life. Growth reveals incompatibility that comfort concealed. Think about it. When you were seeking approval, certain friends served that need perfectly. When you were avoiding responsibility, others enabled that avoidance expertly. When you were running from your potential, some relationships provided the perfect hiding places. But as you step into a clearer version of yourself, one with direction, discipline, and discernment, these same relationships may begin to feel constraining rather than comforting. This is not their fault, nor is it yours. It's simply the natural consequence of growth. The painful truth is that not everyone is equipped to support your evolution. Some people entered your life to serve a chapter that's now closing. Others came to teach you what you don't want, not what you do. A few might even have arrived specifically to show you who you no longer wish to be. Recognizing this doesn't make you arrogant, it makes you aware. And awareness is the first step toward intentional living. I've seen this pattern repeat across countless lives, including my own. The entrepreneur whose college friends subtly undermine their ambitions. The recovering addict whose former circle can't understand their new boundaries. The person pursuing depth who finds themselves surrounded by those who prize distraction. These transitions are rarely clean or comfortable. They involve difficult conversations, painful recognitions, and sometimes necessary distance. But they also create space for new connections that align with your direction, rather than anchor you to your past. Consider the moment you first recognized that a once vital relationship no longer served you. Perhaps it wasn't a sudden realization, but a slow dawning. A growing awareness that who you were becoming and who they needed you to be were increasingly at odds. That recognition is both an ending and a beginning, the end of unconscious connection, the beginning of intentional relationship. And in that transition lies one of life's most powerful opportunities, the chance to realign your outer circle with your inner truth, to surround yourself not with those who keep you comfortable in your limitations, but with those who call you toward your highest possibilities. The economics of attention, protecting your most valuable resource. Time is not just money. Time is life itself, parceled out in moments we can never recover, and yet we give it away to people who don't value it. We surrender hours, days, even years to relationships that don't deepen our understanding, advance our purpose, or fill us with genuine joy. Why? Often because we've never learned to value our own attention. We've been conditioned to believe that being agreeable and available is more important than being intentional and impactful. But consider this perspective. Would you hand over your life savings to someone who had repeatedly proven they couldn't be trusted with money? Of course not. Yet many of us repeatedly invest our most precious resource, our limited time on earth, in relationships that offer minimal returns. The Stoics had a solution: selective investment. They understood that attention, like any valuable asset, should be allocated wisely. They recognized that where focus goes, energy flows, and they refused to direct that energy toward relationships that depleted rather than developed them. This doesn't mean becoming cold or calculating in your connections. It means becoming conscious of them. Ask yourself, who sharpens me? These rare individuals challenge you to think more clearly, act more purposefully, and live more fully. They don't just support your dreams, they expand your sense of what's possible. Who softens me? These relationships don't push you toward your potential. Instead, they cushion you from the productive discomfort that growth requires. They offer comfort over challenge, validation over truth. Who keeps me stuck by keeping things familiar? These connections anchor you to past versions of yourself. They may love you, but they love a you that no longer serves your highest potential. Your answers reveal what needs to change. Not necessarily who needs to be cut off, but which relationships need to be recalibrated, reimagined, or in some cases, respectfully released. Let's be more specific about what these different types of relationships look like in practice. The sharpeners are those rare friends who ask the uncomfortable questions. Why are you really doing this? What are you avoiding by staying busy? Is this actually what you want, or what you think you should want? They listen to your excuses and gently push past them. They celebrate your victories, but are more interested in your growth. Their presence in your life feels both challenging and deeply nourishing. The softeners are the friends who prioritize your comfort over your development. You work too hard. You deserve a break. Don't be so serious all the time. Their care is genuine, but their influence often undermines your discipline. They mean well, but their vision for you is smaller than your vision for yourself. Their presence feels comfortable, but somehow constraining. The anchors are those who know you based on who you used to be, and subtly resist evidence that you're becoming someone new. You've always been this way. Remember when we used to? I miss the old you. They're not malicious. They're just attached to a version of your relationship that no longer exists. Their presence feels familiar, but increasingly misaligned. Understanding these distinctions isn't about judging others. It's about being honest about the role each relationship plays in your life, and whether that role still serves the person you're becoming. And here's the crucial point. It's not just about them. It's about who you become in their presence. Some people naturally bring out your highest self. Others unconsciously trigger your lowest tendencies. This isn't their responsibility to manage. It's yours to recognize and address. The quality equation: depth over breadth. Here's a counterintuitive truth. You don't need more friends, you need more depth, more alignment, more peace. This isn't about isolation, it's about intention. Silence with purpose is better than noise with approval. One true ally beats 10 passive anchors. A single hour of genuine connection outweighs days of shallow interaction. In a culture that quantifies connection, followers, friends, contacts, we've lost sight of what Epictetus understood. The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. What would your life look like if you applied this filter? If you evaluated relationships not by their longevity or convenience, but by their contribution to your character and clarity? It might mean smaller gatherings, but deeper conversations. Fewer notifications, but more meaningful exchanges. Less validation, but more growth. It would certainly mean more space, mental and emotional room, to pursue what matters most, without the constant static of misaligned energies. Some will misunderstand this choice. They'll call it selfish or elitist. They'll wonder why you've changed. But what they're really saying is, I like the version of you that accommodated my comfort more than this version that honors your truth. And understanding that distinction is freedom. Let's be frank about what we're really discussing here. This isn't just about creating more pleasant social experiences. It's about recognizing that your attention, focus, and energy are finite resources. Beside resources shapes your destiny. I know this sounds dramatic, but consider the math. The average person spends roughly 30 to 40% of their waking hours engaged in some form of social interaction. That's around 50,000 hours over an adult lifetime. The question isn't whether this time will influence you, it's how. Will those hours pull you toward clarity or confusion, purpose or distraction, growth or stagnation? The quality of those hours, determined largely by who fills them, will either compound in your favor or against it. Year after year, conversation after conversation, subtle influence after subtle influence. This compounding effect explains why some people seem to accelerate as they age, while others appear to stall. It's not just individual effort or talent, it's the invisible environment created by their closest connections. A study at Harvard tracked people for over 80 years to determine what factors most influence their happiness and success. Their conclusion? The quality of relationships was the single strongest predictor. Stronger than wealth, intelligence, or genetics. But quality is the operative word, not quantity, not convenience, not shared history. Quality. And quality in relationships means alignment with your core values and direction. It means connections that consistently contribute to your growth rather than constrain it. It means people who respect what matters to you, even when it differs from what matters to them. The courageous path, reclaiming your circle. Adjusting your social circle isn't easy. It requires courage to evaluate relationships honestly, wisdom to distinguish between temporary friction and fundamental misalignment, and compassion, both for others and yourself. Sometimes it means direct conversations. I've noticed we're moving in different directions, and I want to understand where we stand. Other times it requires subtle recalibration, gradually investing more in nourishing connections while allowing draining ones to naturally fade. In rare cases, it demands clean breaks, respectfully stepping away from relationships that have become fundamentally toxic or stagnant. None of these approaches is wrong. What matters is the intention behind them. This isn't about cutting people off out of pride or judgment. It's about reclaiming your life from quiet thieves, those relationships that take far more than they give without either party fully realizing the exchange. It's about recognizing that while connections matter, not all connections serve your growth. Some merely serve your ego, your fear, or your need for approval. The Stoics didn't seek to eliminate all relationships, they sought to elevate them, to ensure that each connection contributed something meaningful to the people involved. They saw friendship not as a default setting, but as a deliberate practice, one that required ongoing attention and care. Let me offer some practical guidance for navigating this terrain. First, approach with compassion for yourself and others. Recognize that most people aren't intentionally draining your energy. They're simply operating from their own level of awareness. The friend who constantly complains isn't trying to pull you down. They're stuck in patterns they don't know how to break. The relative who dismisses your ambitions isn't trying to limit you. They're protecting you from what they perceive as risk, based on their own fears. Second, start with honest self-reflection. Before addressing any relationship, get clear on your own part in its current state. Have you been clear about your boundaries? Have you expressed your evolving needs? Have you been consistent in what you're willing to accept? Often, the first step in transforming a relationship is transforming how you show up within it. Third, consider that some relationships don't need to end. They just need to be recategorized. Not everyone needs to be a confidant. Some can be occasional companions, professional contacts, or pleasant acquaintances. The issue often isn't the relationship itself, but the expectations and energy you've attached to it. Fourth, when possible, elevate rather than eliminate. Before deciding a relationship has no place in your life, consider whether it could serve a different purpose. The friend who's not ideal for deep conversations might be perfect for light-hearted recreation. The colleague who doesn't share your values might still offer valuable professional perspective. And finally, remember that this is an ongoing process, not a one-time purge. Your needs will change. People will evolve. What serves you today might limit you tomorrow, and vice versa. The goal isn't perfection, it's awareness and intention. The courage to reshape your circle isn't about asserting superiority. It's about honoring the limited nature of your time and energy, and ensuring those precious resources are invested in connections that truly matter to the person you're becoming, not just the person you've been. The transformation from socially entangled to internally sovereign. What happens when you begin curating your circle with intention? First, you'll feel resistance, both from others and from within yourself. Old patterns will pull. Guilt will surface. The fear of missing out or being forgotten will tempt you back toward choices that no longer serve you. Then comes clarity. As you create space between yourself and draining relationships, your energy returns. Your focus sharpens. You begin to hear your own voice more clearly without the constant static of misaligned influence. Next emerges confidence, not from external validation, but from internal alignment. You'll recognize that your worth isn't determined by how many people want your time, but by how intentionally you allocate it. Finally, transformation unfolds. You become more fully yourself, not because you've isolated from others, but because you've integrated only those connections that reflect and respect your true nature. This is the journey from social entanglement to internal sovereignty, from collecting connections to curating them, from being accessible to everyone to being available for what matters most. It's a path few walk deliberately. Most of us stumble into our social circles through proximity, convenience, or chance. We maintain them through momentum and obligation. We rarely pause to ask, is this arrangement serving the person I'm becoming or preserving the person I've been? But those who do ask this question discover something profound. When you elevate your circle, you elevate your life. Not through arrogance or exclusion, but through alignment and intention. The practical wisdom, implementing the Stoic approach. How do you begin this recalibration without unnecessary pain or drama? Start with awareness. For 1 week, pay close attention to how you feel after each social interaction, not just in the moment, but hours later. Who leaves you energized? Who leaves you depleted? Track this without judgment, simply gathering data. Next, introduce boundaries. These don't need to be declarations or confrontations. They can be as simple as delayed responses, shorter visits, or strategic unavailability. You're not punishing anyone. You're protecting your energy while you reassess. Then, invest consciously. Identify the relationships that consistently elevate you and deliberately deepen them. Reach out. Be vulnerable. Show up fully. Create space for connections that challenge and nourish you. As you do this, some relationships will naturally fade. Others will unexpectedly strengthen. A few might transform entirely as both parties adjust to a more authentic exchange. Throughout this process, maintain compassion for others and yourself. Remember that most people aren't intentionally draining. They're simply operating from their own level of awareness. And you're not rejecting them as people. You're recalibrating the role they play in your life. The goal isn't a perfect circle of flawless friends. Such a thing doesn't exist. The goal is intentional connection. Relationships entered and maintained with clarity, purpose, and mutual benefit. The legacy of your choices beyond the immediate circle. This recalibration creates ripples far beyond your immediate experience. As you become more selective about your circle, you also become more valuable within it. When you refuse to dilute your presence across dozens of half-hearted connections, you can show up fully for the ones that matter. Depth replaces breadth. Quality supplants quantity. Your standards silently influence others. Without preaching or pressuring, you demonstrate what healthy boundaries look like. You show what it means to value one's own time and energy. Some will resent this. Others will respect it. A few might even be inspired to make similar shifts in their own lives. Perhaps most importantly, you create space for new connections that align with your direction. Nature abhors a vacuum. As you release relationships that no longer serve you, you make room for those that will. Often in unexpected and serendipitous ways. This isn't about reaching some final perfect state of social harmony. It's about ongoing discernment, regular evaluation, conscious choice. The relationships that serve you at 30 may not serve you at 40. The circle that supports one phase of growth may hinder the next. The Stoic approach isn't static, it's dynamic. It asks not, who should be in my life forever, but rather, who should be in my life right now, given who I'm becoming? The invitation, choose your circle like your future depends on it. Because it does. Every moment spent in energy-draining company is a moment not invested in your purpose. Every hour absorbed by relationships that keep you small is an hour not devoted to becoming large. Every conversation that circles in familiar complaints rather than expanding into new possibilities is a missed opportunity for growth. This isn't about perfection, it's about intention. Not every friend must be a philosophical giant or success guru. There's room for lightness, for comfort, for shared enjoyment. But when your overall circle consistently pulls you toward distraction rather than direction, comfort rather than capacity, familiar limitations rather than fresh possibilities, something needs to change. Not because you've outgrown them, but because you've outgrown the version of yourself that needed them to stay small. The ancient Stoics understood what many modern people have forgotten. We become like those we spend time with, whether we intend to or not. Their influence shapes us, subtly but significantly, day by day and conversation by conversation. So choose wisely, not out of arrogance, but awareness. Not through rejection, but redirection. Remove the noise, guard your energy, invest in the few who feed your focus, not fracture it. Not every friend is meant to go with you. Some are only meant to show you who you don't want to be anymore. You don't need more people. You need more alignment, fewer distractions, cleaning company. Peace doesn't come from more company. It comes from cleaner company. Check your circle. Someone in it is costing you more than you know.